Welcome to DS Trucks. In this video, I want to talk about how this 3.5 liter Ecoboost has been long term for me. I've had the truck for 3 years now. It's a second generation 3.5 Ecoboost. It's got 470 foot-pounds of torque and 375 horsepower. So, as I had this truck for a long time, 3 years, I drive it every day, and it never disappoints. It doesn't get old. Like every time I get in it, it's got 28,000 miles. It still makes great power. It feels like the day I got it. And every time you feel the torque, it doesn't get old. So I recently just drove a brand new Ram. The new redesigned Ram. Everything on that truck's pretty new. And I was really impressed, guys. I have to say, I was really impressed with the Ram. Let's jump inside here. Put her in drive. Put her in sport mode. I was really impressed with the Ram. It had the 5.7 liter Hemi, and it had e-torque, which is really cool. So it had that big motor up top, electric motor, and a big belt, which adds some power and torque. Pretty cool system. Looking under the hood of that truck is really nice. And just sitting down in that Ram, it was a superior vehicle. The interior was better because everything is redesigned. The seats were a little bit better. One thing I really noticed too about that Ram is like the seating was way better. Like just being able to lower the seat. One of my complaints about the F-150 is the seats don't go all the way low. They go really high if you raise them up, but when you lower the seat, it doesn't really sit all the way down to the floor. I don't know if that's a safety thing or whatever. It might be safer to sit a little bit up higher, but the railing of the seat doesn't let you go as low as you can with like the GM trucks. I remember when I had a GMC, I had an 04 Chevy, and the power seat would go really low to the floor. And for whatever reason, the Fords, the F-150, the rails just don't allow the seats to go too low. So that's been one of the complaints. And when I got in the Ram, I noticed right away that the seat just goes all the way to the floor. But at the end of the day, I've gotten used to how my seat is. It's not that big a deal. But I will say this. That Ram, the interior, it was better. And that wasn't even in the high trim level. This is a high trim level F-150. It's a Lariat 502. And it's got everything. It's an 18. But I was in like a 21 Ram. Or 20, I don't know, very new Ram, and that was a mid-level Ram. It was better than my high-level Ford, in my opinion. They had a bigger screen, the seats were a little better, the interior was a little bit better initially. Now, long-term, I don't know. I don't know if it's easier to use and all that, but I do know that it just felt better if you got into it right away. So if you're new to trucks, you're brand new to all trucks, you have no brand loyalty any direction, you sit down into in a brand new Ram right now, and the Ram's going to feel better than the Ford. Now, being that the Ford's getting redesigned, the Ford is probably going to catch up to the Ram. Now, driving that Ram with the e-torque, with the 5.7 Hemi, I can tell you that this 3.5 Ecoboost still beats the Ram, even though it has all that stuff going on. It still has better power. The 3.5 still has better power in my opinion, and it's still more of a driver's engine in my opinion. So it's interesting that, while the Ram does win in so many aspects, it doesn't win on power. It's very interesting. So the fact that, e-torque is out, it kind of gives Ram a leg up. Ford's coming out with their version of a e-torque where it's not using that alternator device. It's actually using a motor pancaked between the transmission and the engine. I believe Ford has had this technology on some other vehicles for a while, this hybrid technology. And they're going to put a bigger motor on it. They're going to add a little bit more horsepower and torque, a little more than the e-torque adds. So that's going to balance everything out. But it's going to add it to the 3.5 Ecoboost, which is going to it's going to be very good because it's going to add it to an engine that already has superior low-end torque and usable power. And that's one of the things I like about the 3.5 Ecoboost is it has usable power. Because it makes so much power at a low RPM, I could use that power. It really just puts you back in the seat. Puts you back in the seat even more so than the e-torque does. But I don't really want to speed over like 80 miles an hour. I feel like by the time the Hemi makes its power, you're going too fast. I like putting my power down in the low range of the RPM in the acceleration department. Now the Hemi does get up and go, don't get me wrong, but from 0 to 40, I'm having a lot more fun without even barely breaking the speed limit. With Ram, it has to get up and go, but I don't want to like. By the time that engine does what it's good at, I feel like you're just going too fast. So, yeah, it has the power for sure. You know, it's a great engine. It drives better. I even feel like the brakes were better in the Ram. The brakes seem better. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Ram just has bigger rotors right now. But for daily driving, this 3.5 still feels better as far as power. So, you know, it's one of those things I could definitely see me long term. I could see me long term driving this 3.5 EcoBoost, you know, for years to come. Now the Ram it did seem like it was a little bit more comfortable, but you know, long term with this truck, I will say the power of the 3.5 has been just delightful. You know, every time I drive the truck, it doesn't get old. It just doesn't get old. So, you know, it's one of those things. You know, this truck, the 3.5 EcoBoost, long term, it's been pleasurable every time I drive it. I've had it for 3 years, and I still love the way it drives. It still makes tons of power. Still puts you back in a seat. Tow's good. It's efficient. You know, if you drive it conservatively. Now, you see how I'm driving right now, and I'll tell you what, this is how I drive all the time. I'm always getting on it. If you look at my dash over the last, 360 hours that is focusing, I've got 14.5 mpg. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's not that good of an mpg, but I'm literally getting on it every day. Every time I drive it, I'm getting on it. If I had a V8 and I did that, the MPG would be horrible. You know, it's just V8s. Yeah, these EcoBoosts use a lot more fuel, or a lot of fuel, but like I say, if I were to drive a V8 like this all the time, man, I'd be down at like 10 miles per gallon for sure. So anyway, guys, that's it for the video. The thing about this 3.5 is it holds up. It just holds up. You know, I haven't had to put a set of plugs in this thing yet. I'm sure it'll feel a little fresher if I put a set of plugs in it. These EcoBoosts are a little bit hard on plugs, and I've got 29,000 miles. So, you know, it's interesting how I'm curious to how it would be if I put a set of plugs in it. But 3 years later, 30,000 miles later, truck's still a blast to drive, a blast to own. So if you're considering one of these trucks, you know, if you're worried about turbos and all that, it's something to think about. You know, a lot of people have left comments saying, oh, you need to worry about the turbos and you need to be concerned about that. And they've got a point. You know, you start having turbo issues, and that's a big problem. You know, you have turbo problems, that's a big issue. The V8s, you know, technically shouldn't. I mean, in theory, the V8s should last longer because they don't have a lot of these technologies. But at the end of the day, the fact that the vehicle is continuing to be fun to drive outweighs the risk at all. You know, and as life is, you have to take risk, and that's what Ford's done with these EcoBoosts. They've taken risk by introducing so much technology at once. So I think the engine's a big hit. Is it perfect? It's definitely not perfect, but for me, it's performed well. I've done the maintenance, I've changed oil, I run full synthetic, and I haven't had a single issue from the motor. So that's it, guys. That's my time. Thank you for watching DS Trucks. My name is Sean. Have a great day, and see you in the next video. Over and out.